Do you need this?
No,
That
you
to
can
look at, but
if I can write those down.
Yeah.
And then,
Or you want to take this?
Let's hammer this out.
Hustle this one up, because I gotta go by 6.
Number 11,
thanks.
we've got a second reading, Commission Policy Number 10, Wildlife Heritage Tags and Vendors. We kind of hammered this pretty good last time. This time, let's see what we got here. Did it look all right? We had there? In the
We
latest
had
version?
two options here.
Right.
We had two options. On item 5 was basically what we came up with. Anybody have any additional options they wanted to throw out there between last meeting and this meeting?
Something came up as far as somebody wanted to transfer them to one of their kids or something like that, and that's why I thought number 5 would be better, because it's approved by the commission, and Maureen said the only thing it would affect would be turkey tag, but they wouldn't have time to do it.
Okay.
But that way you have some control over transferring them.
All right. Do you have anything else that came up? Go ahead,
Can I ask you
Mr.
a
Pearl.
question? Is a heritage tag, tell me if I'm wrong, heritage tag is a heritage tag, is a heritage tag. And by that I mean, if it were to be given to the son or daughter, it's still a heritage tag. If that tag was resold to somebody else and then they resold it, no matter how many times it passed through different hands, isn't it still a heritage tag? And my reasoning for that is because if it is sold in that fashion, then that money, that is, no matter how many times it might be resold, should go back to the Heritage Fund.
That's another agenda item.
Okay, and that would affect policy.
I'm not sure exactly how it would.
Mr. Rain?
Yeah, go ahead,
Rain?
Commissioner Vogel.
This is kind of a habit a lot of times at lots of charities. You can buy something and then say, turn it back. You know,
Those are not heritage tags.
but it's not a heritage. But if you resell it and the money goes back to the heritage, isn't it the same?
It's
All
a
right,
heritage
hold on,
tag.
hold on. So point being, how do you want this policy? What would you like to see on this policy? Is it good with which option, or have different options?
Well,
I'm talking about policy here.
I want to hear some more comments.
All right, let's go back. What do we got?
I'm not exactly sure how to change it or if it needs to be, but that maybe there just should be a statement in here someplace that says that any funds generated from the sale or resale of a heritage tag must be returned to the heritage account.
Mr. Chairman? Don't we have that already covered? Where it says, the second, number 5, the big gearing heritage tags are non-transferable from the successful bidder unless approved by the commission. So if the commission has an option to approve a transfer and a sale, they can also put in there the provision that if there's any extra money made off of this, you guys, the only way we're going to approve this being transferred is for you to kick in the extra money.
Is that blackmail? Is that illegal? Holding it over their head?
I don't think so.
I wouldn't think so. I'm just sitting here trying to think of, you're making a deal. You're making a deal on a,
Blackmail is different.
but I'm just trying to think of a different term, but you're holding it over their head. Well, we'll do what you want, but you got to give us money. But I'm just would that be legal? Should be a more appropriate question.
Okay, let me start with the first one. Is that
I'm not sure that one's gonna work, because you have these, you know, they have their, what do you call them? You know, their big meetings where they sell these tags, and then if somebody decides to transfer it, you gotta wait for the next commission meeting, which, you know, we only have so many commission meetings a year, so I think the approved by the commission, that's not gonna work, because it's just too unwieldy, personally. As to,
Why won't that work?
what?
Why won't that work?
Well, if you, I mean, if I buy a tag at a convention in April,
No, most of them are in January, February, and March. Seasons don't go till fall.
oh, okay.
All right.
I just,
All
it
right.
just seems unwieldy. But back to the money problem. If you look at the statute, I think you can read the statute that any money from any sale of a tag has to go to the Heritage Fund. Like
Bingo.
Commissioner Macbeth said at the start, right? So,
So is this redundant?
so by requiring people to pay the money, the money for the tag, into the Heritage Fund is not, it wouldn't be something wrong, it would be complying with the law. So, am I making sense?
That was my
So in
point.
other words, the law says, the law, I interpret the law to say, if you sell a heritage tag, then the profit from that sale needs to go into the Heritage Fund, right?
Okay.
And I understand that there's competing, you know, some people might read it as saying, well, it only applies to the first sale, but, you know, that's for later. But, so if you interpret the statute to say all the profit has to go into the Heritage Fund, then it's not wrong to tell people you can't transfer this tag unless the extra profit comes into the Heritage Fund.
Okay, I'm following you there.
See, the problem is though, and I'm not looking at the statute, I need to look at the statute, because the other problem is, it says in the statute that it has to be like an auction or something from somebody, or, let me look at the language of the statute real quick.
I'd just like to throw out one thing here. If I was gonna go with item 5, I'd prefer it to have the language from item 5, from the first 5,
Yes.
and then with the unless approved by the commission at the end. So I think the language from the first 5 is more specific than the language from the first portion of the second. You got it? That are non-transferable as opposed to, if you're gonna do it, use that first language. May not,
Okay, so here's the other thing.
okay.
It's under NRS 502-250 sub 5, and it says the commission may accept sealed bids or may auction not more than 15 big game tags and not more than 5 wild turkey tags. So the sale and resale would be illegal because they have to be either the sealed bids or the auction. Okay, so that's one thing. You know, the question and the thing that makes me more nervous is, okay, if I put it on eBay, that's an auction, right? That's the argument, but which, you know, I think should not happen. That's what I think we need to start the regulatory process to say, you know, and to say that especially that heritage tags cannot be resold for private profit or something like that. And we're going to talk. We may be able to skip the agenda item where we're going to talk about this, but like if you look at the language suggested by NBU, I think that the legislature would have to enact that language. I think that's above our authority here. So, sorry, you caught me off guard. I had a prepared statement for the agenda item when I got there, but that's my analysis.
Continue this
So
item
we
a little
still
more.
gonna discuss that
All right.
in item 30, is it, or whatever?
All right, yeah, but let's try to focus
I'll save
on
my
this
comments for
on this agenda item. What do we want to do with this? Go ahead, Commissioner Macbeth, you had a comment on this policy.
I think the problem that I'm having is that we're not really focusing on the right thing, because we're talking about tags here. And the way I understand it is that you go to an auction and you bid for this opportunity to get this heritage tag. And then there's a 30-day period to basically provide the name of the hunter that's going to get the tag. But there's nothing in the statutes or the regulation that deals with heritage that requires that the person who bid at the auction be the hunter. That is completely left out, which now leaves the opportunity for the person who bid on the tag at the auction to have almost a power of appointment. So it's now not the transfer of the tag, but it's almost the transfer. He's basically transferring the ability to put the name on the application that gets the tag. And so I think we need to be careful, because there is already a statute, and I don't have it in front of me, that says you cannot transfer a tag. So if a tag was issued in the name of a hunter, you obviously cannot transfer that tag to anybody else. But what we're talking about here, once there's an auction, is literally the ability to put the name on the application to get the tag. And so we need to deal with that. In other words, what this policy needs to state is that the winning person at an auction it has to be the applicant, and there cannot be any transfer of that right unless approved by the commission.
All right, can you put that in a few words I can write in as an alternate to number 5?
Brian, do you understand what I'm saying?
I'd just like to see, I think we're
Sorry, I was
tracking,
researching
but
something else, and I apologize. Can you give it to me one more
let
time?
me get, okay, let me get, can he clarify? Okay.
I think what we have to have, I've considered the same line of thought with Commissioner Macbeth. What we have to have is, they would have to declare who the tag holder will be, because, I know that, you can have a friend that's going to the auction bid for you.
Is your
They'll be on the
agent.
telephone, so it's not the bidder, it's the buyer. So the guy that's buying the tag needs to say, okay, I'm the buyer and I'm going to put this name on the tag, I think is kind of where you're going.
Yes, and that's exactly right. In other words, there needs to be a declaration of who the person that is going to be the hunter immediately. In other words, we need to know that name as to who the winner of that auction is. Now, it could be dad, bidding on the tag for son, and as soon as he wins the auction, he says, this is going to be for my son, Johnny. And so we need to know that immediately. And then, at that point in time, we can have the ability of that person to change their mind and say they want to transfer that tag to another hunter, but that's only with the approval of the commission.
Write that down.
And if there's any additional consideration, that has to come back to the Heritage Fund.
Write it down. That's what we need.
All right, I'll try to work something up by tomorrow. How's that sound?
That sounds good. You got the, what I'm...
That's
I
exactly
apologize, I was looking up something else while you were talking.
Mr. Stockton,
Can you try to
I think that,
okay.
Chairman, I think the gist of it should be, Mr. Stockton, in the development of the language, is that irregardless, the bottom line is any money received from the sale or trading or whatever of a heritage tag must go to the heritage account.
Well, that's part of his,
That's what he's saying is law already.
I'm just
put the
saying,
name
well,
immediately on it.
Well,
okay,
I think we should.
I think we should put it in the
door
policy.
transfer. There just shouldn't be
Exactly.
any transfer.
Which case number 5 covers it.
yes.
And then if you could, I'd like that first 5, but then with the wording, it's the last 5 words of the second 5 added on the end of the first 5,
Well, but, Mr. Chairman,
right?
you were told that, or somebody was told that the one species, the turkey tag, might be a problem.
Well,
But this says big game.
that's due to timing, and next year it could be something else,
Still a
but
big game heritage
nonetheless, they would know that by the timing of their draw, if I'm gonna have it within a certain such time, then there's no chance of it being approved by the commission. And more than likely, it'd be a very rare event. It'd be once every few years anyway, so.
Let me ask you this. I don't think wild turkeys are involved because the first 5 says big game heritage tags. And if you go back to the policy, the purpose, it is, it mentions there are 15 big game tags and 5 wild turkey tags. So
Well, that's why we put
if
it
you
in.
adopted that language,
Committee put it in there.
that automatically eliminates the turkeys from it. Is that right?
Turkeys aren't big game. Turkeys are.
Not the way this thing is worded.
Yeah, this says big game, so turkeys are irrelevant. Yeah, there you go.
We're kind of leaving them out.
Yeah. So you don't need to worry about the transfer language.
I don't think anybody, I think the turkeys aren't worried about the turkeys. Because the turkeys aren't the issue.
As long as you say,
Transference.
as long as you say big game tag, heritage or tags, then that eliminates anything other than big game, which includes turkeys.
I'd rather write language tomorrow, so it's finalized on.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't care about the turkeys. I don't think there's a thriving market for
All right.
turkey tags. There is reason to be
All right. So what do we got? We got some language here?
Not yet, tomorrow.
Okay, so we're gonna have that discussion, and the people that are going to develop it is the singular Mr. Stockton, under what he's just heard here.
Yes.
So that's who's developing that wording. Okay. Let's move right along. To that effect. Number 12, second reading fish policy number 50, duck stamp procedure. What do we have on that?
You get a big public comment on it.
No, these aren't action items. So, let's move right along here. Number 12, or policy number 50, number 12 on the agenda. Basically, we had the no judge. What else do we have?
All entries must be an original work of art.
And all entries must be an original work of art.
Under,
As an additional 5, yeah. Yeah, that was an option that was thrown in there.
we just put it in. Because it's components.
So what's the new language?
That was, yeah, all entries must be an original work of art. That was thrown out as,
That's new language, isn't it?
that's what,
Well,
yeah,
that's what we did last time.
But
that's what we did last time. It's not in the support material, but that's what we
No,
had.
it was not in there. We proposed it because of the problem we had this last,
Yeah, and that's here.
remember?
Number 3, it's
And that was
listed
the
as
issue
number
of the one,
Tell.
They
couldn't
just changed the
tell.
wording around. It's number 3.
3. Yeah, number 3 here.
yes, that's new language.
That's new language. Number 6 is new language. Well,
Yeah.
no judge will have any interest
3
contact.
and 6, they just reworded.
Smart asses.
Yeah, just renumbered. Okay, this is second reading. We went over it, got most of these changes. Didn't see anything else forthcoming.
Well,
The-
4 is also, isn't it?
We had Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go ahead.
we had the letter from the Waterfowl Association
Yeah.
talking about the changing of the judging panel. Is that already been done, or is that part of this?
It's part of this.
'Cause that's not highlighted.
No, I don't think that's incorporated. That was input since the last meeting. This is only what happened at the last meeting. So that, if you would like to and see that, see something else incorporated based upon that input?
Well, I've served on this duck stamp judging committee the last 3 years, and we haven't had an issue with it. And I actually think that 5 people is not enough. You have a lot of interchange, and I think Commissioner Wallace and Commissioner Cabrera have both served on it as well. You have a lot of interchange between the judges, and it's, I'm not sure how many there was, but I think there was like 9 before. And I think it gives you a better balance.
It was 7. There was
Was it
7.
7?
7. And with 2 members of the board.
But I don't think we need to change that makeup. I agree with the number 6. And we certainly need the number 3 because the last year we did have an entry that we could not tell whether it was original art or whether it was a photograph of original art. And it was in fact original art. But it was so finely done that there wasn't a judge in there that could say it was original. We finally actually had staff look at the packaging and look at and they determined that our determination was, since it was insured for $6,500, we thought it was original art.
All right. So let's throw this up. I just want to clarify what you're talking is a proposed number 1 that would return it to what is currently present language in 50.
Which is 7.
Not as which is 7-member, as present language, 7-member. So that will be an option, so we can throw out for tomorrow. And
With 2 members of the commission.
yeah, as it currently reads today, unmodified, that will be an option along with what is currently here.
Right.
Okay, that'll be an option. Yes, sir.
Was that me?
Yes, Mr. Macbeth, Commissioner Macbeth.
No artistic ability whatsoever.
And I don't either. But I
That
did.
is hey you with an E.
Now, is the on number 4? Is the first sentence new?
So if I can't, if they can, I'm sure they'll have a picture to it.
Yes.
And I don't think we
Okay. I spoke with Tom Wilson, who is on, I believe he's,
You can come up.
I spoke with Tom Wilson, who's on the, I think he's on the board of directors of the Nevada Waterfowl Association, and he is very concerned about this new provision. There's a lot of artists that are out there that may not be able to comply with this requirement, and what he has told me is that in the past, that if there's ever been a problem with an artist not being able to come up with the setup fees or whatever's involved in doing that the Nevada Waterfowl Association has always stepped in and paid it.
They didn't this last time.
What's that?
They did not this last time.
Commissioner Pearl, you said who did not what? Explain, please.
They did not. They did it 2 years in a row, and then the third time they said, that's why we don't have a screen of the duck stand. So it's an ongoing problem in which they
Kim-
just don't.
Kim, can you go over where this language came from on item 4?
So, this is what you guys discussed from the April meeting, and what we, as a group, when Daryl Harwell was here, threw out there, the $3,000 bond, because we went back and forth, and at that point, Daryl said they're not necessarily supportive of continuing to pay for the artist's screen print. And that's when he said, regardless of how many prints you make, it's the setup of the screen printing that costs so much. So he suggested $3,000, right? Well, since then, he's spoken to other members of the Waterfowl Association that have differing opinions. So he said, what does California do? California has a fee for every entrant, and they use that, they pull those fees together, and then that's what's used to pay for the screen print for whoever wins. So it's really up to you guys, whatever you want to do. I know Hugh Judd sent a letter, or I don't know if it was before or after Tom's letter, but that said they weren't supportive of a bond or an entry fee. So I don't know what you do.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Lent, then Commissioner Howell, and we'll get back.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the things that, in their letter they wrote, they wanted to be able to sell the prints, and I don't think that making money from a public duck stamp to a private group is the right thing to do. If the artist doesn't make prints, then this private group should not be allowed to make them and sell them, and that's been the problem. They want to do it as a fundraiser, and this is a public duck stamp contest, and I don't think that should be allowed.
Okay, and under current rules, it's not, so, right, so we're good.
How many entrants do we
That was my
typically get?
is it 12?
28, 28 last year?
Was it 30?
Okay, so
That's
for,
that
you
guy.
mean to tell me, I think the entry fee would be a great idea. Under
That's what
that
they do in
Well,
California.
If they get
It's $50.
30,
What,
that's
what I've
nothing.
run into
$100.
is, what's your relationship with the waterfowl?
I'm the publications coordinator for it now. I handle
Yeah?
the contest.
Okay. I'm just yeah, come on up. I just got a question, and maybe you can answer, because I don't see the waterfowl guys here. Have you heard from these guys? I mean, I'm uncomfortable putting this $3,000. I'm uncomfortable putting any language in there. What have you heard from them? Have they expressed anything to you?
Just what Kim Jolly said, that
Okay.
they're not in favor of the bond or the change in the judging panel.
Because I'm uncomfortable with a fee or anything else unless they're comfortable with it, and maybe I'm just off base, but
I don't think we can do it.
Yeah,
you know,
do we have statutory authority to charge the fee?
I think I said I was uncomfortable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry I missed today. That was the call that I had to take. I apologize.
That's-
but,
My honest opinion is
Yes.
the whole thing could be fixed if we change the rules which isn't actually in policy, but the contest rules are really vague when it comes to the artist. It says the artist may print conservation prints if they decide. If we change that one sentence to say that's part of the requirement of winning, then those people who couldn't afford wouldn't enter the contest.
Is that in here somewhere?
That's not in the commission
I would
policy,
agree
that's
with
in the rules for the contest that we send out to the artists.
So that's something internal that could be done.
Yeah, that could just be,
We could put that in. You don't have to fix it. Yeah.
All right, there's a couple things that do need it fixed, but I'm not. All right, so let's throw out as an option here, striking item 4. That will be an option. As it's presented to us was an option, and striking it is an option. Got it. Go ahead, Commissioner Pearl.
Could I have a clarification? You're saying that we wouldn't have to change the policy here?
I don't
to-
believe so
To
because,
do that? What you're,
oh,
I
yeah,
like that.
yeah, that would just be me going and getting on that sheet and deleting that word.
Okay, because quite frankly, it wasn't fair to have the sponsor of this award have to pay for the setup, screening, and this sort of thing in order for us to have a copy of the print. So, but the last 2 artists apparently have refused to do that, as I
Klingfelder did?
understand it.
All right, so I just want to clarify what we're doing here in policy. We're going to have what's printed here as an option. We're going to have on item, line 1, we'll have it, an option B, return to the current language as exists today in this policy for number 1. And we will also have the option of striking number 4 as it's presented here. Not the original number 4, this one is presented here. Does anybody want to see anything else as options?
Do we have did you incorporate number 1?
Yes.
5 individuals and 2 commissioners?
Number 1, as it currently exists in policy today.
Which is,
Okay.
As it currently
So
is
the old one.
the old policy, before not unmodified, unchanged,
so we would be considering 3 and 6 then, right?
Yeah. we just need to tell.
as it's here, everything that's here with the one addition.
First reading 4/16/11.
On first reading 4/16/11. As it came out of that, as presented to us by staff. Okay, so we know our options.
Can you hold on just a second, let me ask Commissioner.
Okay, ask a question, please. Commissioner Kevin.
Do you think that this number, and maybe for Aaron as well, all entries must be the original work of the artist. And the question came up was, we wanted to basically outlaw any electronic retouching
Right.
and Photoshops and that kind of thing. Are we covered with that? That doesn't, I don't know if that covers
Original
that.
work.
Or do you have that covered?
Would you
in
say?
the-
That's up to the judges. That's why there's
How
expert
about
judges.
original, unaltered, or?
That's why there's expert judges to determine those things.
Yeah, I haven't actually changed
Do you remember-
that rule, but
remember
yeah,
that?
it was something to the effect of no electronic art, because I believe we thought it might have been a high resolution print of
Right.
the original
Yeah.
artwork.
Left-handed paint
All right.
brush only.
All right, let's.
Entries must be original.
I'm happy with this language here because there's judges involved,
Better.
and you know, I mean, theoretically, somebody could be the original work that they did on a computer. Well, maybe in 10 years, the judges will determine that that's better than a guy with a paintbrush. I don't know. Maybe it's holographic that can be printed out. I don't know. But that's up to the judges. That's why there's judges. And if we try to narrow it down here, it'll screw it up.
I just want to, I was at a, I actually was in a,
And we really need to go on to the next item, too.
oh,
Go ahead.
basically an art gallery, and was talking to the artist, the person that actually did the work that I was looking at, and what it was a photograph. It was a photograph of basically the Red Rock Canyon area of West Las Vegas, if anybody's familiar with that, but. It was a photograph actually up in the La Madres, and actually they got up high enough and they were taking pictures of bristlecones and so on and so forth. And the what this photograph was somehow transferred onto a canvas, and it looked like a painting, but it was a photograph. And so I just want you to be aware that there is some process out there that makes it look like it's a painting, but in fact it is nothing more than some kind of a process that transfers that electronic image onto a canvas.
And that would be original work of the artist, and that's why we have judges to make those determinations in their expert capacity. All right, are we clear?
I think Aaron can
But-
adjust the rules and say no photographs, electronic.
Yeah, I can add whatever you want.
That's what-
As long as we have this language in here,
Yeah.
he can work with the internal part.
I'm not too worried about that portion of it. And I'd even leave all that junk out and let the judges bloody decide. You know, if they like somebody's picture, that's why there's judges. You know,
I like a photograph.
they might like a photograph. That's why there's judges. And that's why we.
But it can't be a photograph because now it's a photography contest as opposed
All right,
to a...
that's why there's judges, and I'm not in charge of the bloody judging.
Okay. Moving on.
Okay. But that's somebody else's decision, and that'd be great if they made a determination. Dream tag regulation. Come on up, please. Maureen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maureen Hullinger for Nevada Department of Wildlife, Program Officer 3. Dream tag regulation, that's the agenda item. I wasn't quite sure what I was being asked to present, so I'm going to take a stab at it. I've presented lots of regulations to the commission over the years, and there is a process in development. And right now, we're in the step phase of that for this, the NRS that's in place for the Dream Tag. And part of that process is to look over what some of the testimony and the current NRS, if it changes, there's a bill out there, to come up with some draft commission general regulation after looking at all the language, and present that back to the commission. We know that there's going to be CR regulation because it deals with a tag. We're going to be coming forward to you with the general standard stuff for tag, for the eligibility, the method of take, unit groups, things like that, to get those established. In looking at the NRS, I know there's probably going to be commission general regulation regarding the stamp, just to outline some of the requirements for that, because that's that resource enhancement stamp. So that's a step. The major step is to go through all of that testimony in NRS and bring that together and determine what needs to be established at the regulatory level. And then I think the last step is to go back to the principal parties of the legislation and make sure that we haven't lost any intent, and then buff it up and bring it forward to you and the public sector for approval to get that program in place. And that's pretty much what I have for a report today, and go from there.
Hey,
So-
question. The NRS said there's hereby created an advisory board on dream tags consisting of 5 members. Do we have that advisory board to advise us?
That's actually by NRS. I believe the governor and the senator majority leader and people like that appoint that board in NRS. I think further on in the NRS it states how that's appointed.
Yeah. One by the governor, one by majority leader of the Senate, Speaker of the Assembly, Advisory Board of Natural Resources, and Vice Chairman of the Commission are those people. So right now, we only have, we would have the Vice Chairman of the Commission. Do we have any of those other 4 members that we know of? Have they ever been appointed?
Since 2009, no.
Okay, but there's never been one in existence that I know of. So I would think that, would I be wrong in saying, Maureen, that the first step in the process would be asking if anybody wants to do what NRS 502.225 says and give us this board so that they can guide us in the process? Would that be the first step, or?
I'm not sure if the department has the authority to tell the governor
Okay,
what to do, but
ask nicely, begging.
but I think that is all part of the implementation. We have to work all together to get it going.
Request.
So
I'm just throwing things out here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In essence, the second half of this act all has to do with somebody else. That being the governor, the majority leader of the Senate, Speaker, and this sort of thing. They have not done their part of it, but that is separate and apart from ours. Ours is the first half of that act, if you will, and that is the process that Maureen is working on now, and that is to work out the mechanics of how the system would work with a regard to the 501c3 organization and the like.
That's their.
As NRS reads, do you see that is your role to come up with the things you're talking about, or is that the advisory board on Dream Tag's role to do that? I'm just asking the question. I'm not trying to say anything. I'm just asking the question.
I envision it to be the department's role in regards to the seasons and bag regulations, and maybe and the commission to develop that type of language.
And would that come? I mean, this is the chicken or the egg question. Would that come first, or these guys come first?
If I could, Deputy Director Rich Haskins, if you read that part of the statute, it says the board shall, in accordance with the requirements of paragraph C of subsection 3, determine the appropriate use of the money. That's referring to that advisory board. So their role comes later.
Their role comes later. Okay. Their role is after the regulation is in effect. Is that how we're seeing their role?
Right.
After money's collected, after.
Well, it's not necessarily true, because they can name members of that committee at any time.
Yes, but the role of that committee is not to.
Right, they have no role to do,
Right, draft
But-
regulation or anything. It's-
but that committee could be named by those
Oh, yes,
individuals
yes,
prior to that.
yes.
Thank you.
Okay. That's a couple questions that came up, and I figured I'd ask them. Anybody else have questions for staff on this item? So where are we going from here?
That's it.
Do we give direction to staff to
I think we did that last meeting.
Last time.
Not an action item.
Well,
No,
but
it's not an action item, but we have to figure out what our plan is.
But that was last time we'd asked them.
Okay.
we'd asked staff, and staff is moving forward with this. Is that correct?
I've been looking at the NRS in regards to how to go forward, yes, and trying to draft that language, and so.
Okay, so staff is making progress towards this. All right. Go ahead.
Turner. Thank you.
Question?
Any timetable, and is it something that we're going to maybe see in August, or is it a longer process? I'm just not sure how long it's going to take you.
I would like to have something by August. I would like to meet with the principal parties too. I mean, I have questions regarding the enhancement stamp in regards to implementing it, because it does affect my office directly. So those things may need to be taken account, but until I really get into, and it sounds like I've been designated as the go-to person on this regulation, I'd like to keep it moving as quickly as possible, but until I get into it, the calendar sometimes, as we've seen in the past on regulation, we're not always in control either. But I'd like to come forward with something, maybe by August. So
Another stamp contest?
no, thank you, Aaron. There you go. You can have another stamp. No, I don't know. I think what I've seen in the legislation is it's paperless, and that's one of my questions. Was paperless meant to be electronic like we currently have, like our privilege now, or is it truly paperless where they pay their fee and they don't walk away with something? Those are things that I'd like to know an answer for. And until I ask those questions, I'm going to probably draft something as broad as possible, and when I meet with those parties, then I can refine it and go from there. So that's my plan if I was to do it, which it sounds like I'm.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay, go ahead.
would that meeting, Maureen, also include meeting with the Western Foundation?
It can. I think they're a principal party in the legislation.
Named vendor.
And so when we did the Silver State tag and the apprentice license, we involved the principal parties to make sure we got their intent right. So, and it's a successful method. I'd like to continue that process, so.
All right, I think we're ready for Chief of Game, Larry Gilbertson, Sage Grouse and Upland Game Season Status Report. Welcome, Chief.
Thank you.
Tell us the story.
For the record, Larry Gilbertson, Department of Wildlife. Mr. Chairman, currently we are in the process of evaluating harvest from last year. We had 18,000 people who hunted upland game 2 years ago, and this last year in 2010 it went up 8,000. So we sent out 26,000 questionnaires, and so we're in the process of getting most of those back and entering 26,000 hunter questionnaires into the database so we can see what the actual harvest was this year. So that's where we're at with evaluating the 2010 season. Essentially, upland game seasons were set in 2007 with CR 07-07, and were set all the way through 2012. And then each year since then, if some sort of a adjustment was needed, then we amend that. And each year we've had small adjustments in some of the seasons or since then. So it'll be like CR 07-07 Amendment 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's the process for upland game right now. And at the current time, we don't anticipate any major changes in upland game seasons for next year. And from the initial input I've gotten from biologists and my staff specialist is, and like most of you have probably seen out there, is it looks like the stage is set pretty well for pretty decent nesting this year, and in most upland game populations, the base populations are up from a couple of years ago, so I think we're sitting pretty good with base populations of upland game. And if we get just a little bit of rain this summer, we might have some pretty darn good hunting this year.
Sage grouse. Tell us about sage grouse.
Well, again, every year we count sage grouse leks, and they're still collating and collecting information from volunteers and others. And so we don't even have all of this year's lek data in. I've talked to some individuals who indicated it looked like lek counts were up a little bit this year. So I'm hoping that holds true when they get all the data in, that sage grouse are up a little bit from last year. So that would be a good thing.
Any questions? We have Commissioner Vogler.
Is there a triggered number with the federal government to get that sage grouse off of the endangered species list, or is this something that's going to be a millstone around our neck forever?
Yeah, there's not really a trigger number. There's factors that they look at when it comes to listing, the ESA 5 factors that they can list birds. And so each year right now, because of the status, we're in an evaluation period. So all the states are sent a questionnaire each year to say what good or bad has happened for sage grouse in their state. And so we just fill that out each year, and that's the evaluation process until something changes it, until the Fish and Wildlife Service decides that one of those factors has been violated and that something has changed drastically and they need to move forward
But you
on
could
it.
have that in a bad hatch.
Well, that just a bad hatch wouldn't be enough, that it would have to be a bad hatch caused by some man-made situation that, caused the bad hatch, like, I don't know, some sort of a development project that got rid of all the nesting habitat, so that's why they had a bad hatch. But, the bird populations fluctuate drastically. All bird populations do, so they can't just do it on a one-year downward trend for sage grouse. So what they're looking at is the long-term.
Okay, but what's long-term? Is there a 5-year trend line that they would say, okay, hey, this thing's working out there in central Nevada, we're going to take it off?
That's actually a real interesting question, because we've asked that ourselves at times and can't get that type of an answer about, is there a number? Well, first of all, it's hard to estimate sage grouse populations. There's a couple of techniques, but, bird populations are pretty difficult to estimate anyway. And so whether or not they would even have a population estimate that they were comfortable with. So they're looking mostly at the habitat, and one of the biggest factors that you can tell if sage grouse are still out there and doing well are the sage grouse leks. And of course, we have hundreds of leks in the state of Nevada. We might have more leks than most other states, and we've really increased our efforts in monitoring leks. Probably 15, 20 years ago, we used to monitor about 50 leks or so statewide, just trend leks. Each biologist had a few that he would go take care of and count, and we'd look at those trend leks. Some of them we've counted for 30, 40 years, and that tells us, if the population trends up or down for our purposes. But the last decade or so, we've gotten help from volunteers, from federal agencies, from a lot of people. We're counting hundreds of leks each year. So we have more information about sage grouse than we've ever had before. So I feel pretty good about that we're able to, exert that kind of effort on sage grouse. And then, of course, they're looking at habitat, and, the fires that we've had the last few years is one of the factors. They look at regulations, are there regulations and laws out there that are going to be detrimental, or things going on like, energy development in key sage grouse habitat. So we're working closely with the BLM to try to address those issues and try to make sure that we don't end up with a listing situation with sage grouse. And in terms of harvest, you'll notice around the state we have different seasons, and we actually have closed areas, and that's because we're following guidelines on harvest from numerous studies that show you shouldn't acceptable harvest is somewhere between 5 and 15% of your estimated population. And so we do our own internal population estimates for areas, and we try to make sure that we design hunting seasons to keep our harvest down to where it's not a factor. We certainly wouldn't want harvest to be one of the factors used as an excuse or a reduction of the overall population. I guess a similar thing is Lahontan cutthroat trout have been listed for, I don't know how long, Rich, 30, 40 years, 25, 30 years, and they're listed as threatened, and you can go catch Lahontan cutthroat trout. So it's, as long as you're doing it, appropriately and not affecting the populations. So.
Commissioner Capurro.
Mr. Chairman, you touched on it there. Aren't we exacerbating the problem by hunting them, though? But you're saying that as long as you have a reduced quota, if you will, for them, you're not damaging their
Exactly.
overall numbers?
The basis.
It just seems to me if you're hunting them.
Yeah, see, and the basis for all hunting, everything we hunt, it's based on not impacting populations. We used to talk about harvestable surplus and managing populations, and that's what all harvest and seasons are. That's how they're set. So you're not impacting the population.
Well, I guess
all of them.
I guess what concerns me is that you indicated that in 2009 we had 18,000 upland game hunters. Now, I realize many of those, that's all upland game, so it would not necessarily be them hunting, all of them hunting greater sage grouse, but you jumped up from 18 to 26,000. That's a pretty substantial jump. And I'm wondering how many of those actually, and is there any way for us to know how many of those are actually hunting and harvesting
That's actually something we've looked at for the long term, is the sage grouse. The interest in sage grouse hunting actually has declined. And in fact, a decade or so ago, we actually increased the length of sage grouse seasons trying to get that interest back. But it seems like ever since we used to have sage grouse seasons really early in September, and it used to be like a family thing, and a lot of people used to go out, and it was really popular. And then when people became a little more concerned about sage grouse, and we moved that season closer to October, we've really seen a drop off in spite of the increase, the huge human increase in population in the state of Nevada. We haven't seen an increase on sage grouse hunting, and we still don't. And most of that increase you see is because of chukars and quail. When those populations are doing well, that's when people kick in. The other species that we don't have tremendous hunter interest in anymore is waterfowl. So it's actually kind of a challenge with sage grouse and waterfowl to keep people interested and out there.
Other questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
could I add a little to the
Sure.
the discussion? The decision to put the sage grouse on the endangered species list was not based on total numbers. There's 500,000 sage grouse in the world. We got 65 to 80,000 in the state. We kill 4,000 to 5,000. When the service looked at all of the variables that are affecting sage grouse, there's about 19. Hunting was number 12. The 5 factors that they look at that finally made the determination, diseases, hunting, were excluded. They are not an issue. The 2 things that drove the listing are, one, habitat loss and degradation, and the other is the regulatory framework upon which provides protection for the bird. At the last Executive Oversight Committee, where all the federal agencies and state agencies that have sage grouse were there, the service basically looked at the BLM and said, it's all on your shoulders. It's all on BLM shoulders on modifying the RMPs in the core sage grouse areas to make sure that there's sage grouse are considered. We still have districts here that say, oh, until the bird's listed, we're not really going to concern ourselves with it. So
Does that also apply to the subspecies?
in the bi-state population?
Right.
But we don't hunt the bi-state population. So, those factors, it's still the regulatory framework and habitat degradation.
California does not hunt that either.
They do not, no.
Okay.
And all, I would say, 9 out of 10 of the studies that I've looked at, and Sean's the one that brought it to me, it's a compensatory hunting mortality, that we're not mining, we're not, it's not like you're taking these birds away and it's reducing the population. That's not the way they're established. I think every state is hunting sage grouse that has sage grouse except North Dakota. Again, and they have a little remnant population that just barely hanging on. It's at the outside edge of the range of sage grouse. So hunting is really not a factor. And all the directors have made a very strong statement that we're going to maintain that hunting tradition. The service doesn't have any problem with it. It's really a non-issue. And it really will see whether or not the BLM is going to step up the plate. We're having a summit. I was able to arrange, myself, the Colorado director, Idaho director, and Wyoming director are going to meet on June 7th in Washington, D.C. with BLM, NRCS, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service director, and their boss, plus the Western Governors Association representative, to talk about what the BLM is going to do and what commitments they're going to make. And I was told yesterday that BLM is scurrying to put together a national plan to show how they can update these RMPs. And that's what's going to keep the needle from going to from LPN of 8 to 1, which will get the full protection of the act.
And one more interesting thing about hunting, in the Eureka County country, we've had that falcon to Gondor study going on for quite a while with UNR, and we've, Sean was relaying to me not long ago about one year we had more than 100 marked sage grouse out there with radio collars. And for years, I've gone to the Eureka County Game Board meeting and heard about the Cortez range and how popular that was. And the guys were always concerned, oh man, we better close her down. Everybody goes out there hunting. And that's where all these birds are marked. And when that season opened up, I think we got out of it was, I think, close to 150 marked birds. We got a return of 2 or 3 birds that were marked. And that actually, we were surprised that low of a number of these marked birds were even harvested. And, people hunting right in there with the marked birds. It was just, there was a lot more birds in that population than we even thought. So it's really interesting, that study. If you'd like more on that, Sean could give you some more details on that. That's pretty neat.
A lot of sage grouse in that area. I wandered down there a couple times, not only during the season, but other times, yeah.
Yeah, it's surprising.
See 20 of them here, 20 of them there, just everywhere. All right. So we got next item, which is item C, gifts, grants, donations, and bequests. We had a handout, and this is from, tell us a story.